What are the downsides of living in Rochester? Rochester suburbs seems to fill the requirements I'm looking. In terms of LGBTQ friendliness here,
What does Reddit think about living in Rochester, New York? I know, it's an interesting topic, but a really fun one too, because when you look up anything on Google, you have to put Reddit because you get so many ads, right? So let's look at it from the perspective of people that actually live here, or people that were thinking about moving here, and the whole shebang. I'm super curious what Reddit thinks about living in Rochester. I've lived here for the longer part of my life, right? So I immigrated here from Nepal with my family in 2008. We lived in a refugee camp. It was Building 1, Sector B, and our family had the opportunity to come anywhere in the United States or Britain, according to the IMO, which is the International Organization for Migration. It took us 2 years. We started in 2006 at the time, to get vetted, to get legally documented, take our shots, everything. But we did come here in 2008, and I'm proud to be an American citizen. I'm proud to be, someone that lives in Rochester, right? The thing is, I haven't lived here my whole life. That's the one piece of thing, that's the one caveat, is I have not lived here my whole life just because I lived in a refugee camp when I was younger. With that being said, I think it'd be really fun and interesting to see what other people think about living in Rochester, New York, whether it be from a perspective of someone that's lived there their entire life and someone that's thinking about moving here, because Reddit does not play any games. So let's look at what people are saying about living in Rochester, New York from Reddit. Two things I want to talk about. Number one, first and foremost, again, we are licensed real estate agents. If you need help with finding a property, rentals, selling your home, anything, you have any questions about the market, give us a call. Our team, we are professional agents, and as much as I'd like to joke around here, we definitely don't joke around when it comes to helping you make that move. And the second thing is we started something called the Rochester Report, which in essence talks about everything that's going on in Rochester. I'll put it in the description below, check that out as well. But with that being said, let's get back to it and look at what Reddit is saying about living in Rochester, New York.
all right, so I found a few different articles from Reddit about what it is to live in Rochester, New York, and I don't want to bore you with every single thing, so I'm just going to touch on what I think were the funniest or the most impactful comments. This one, in terms of timeline, is really interesting, right? So this one was made about 7 months ago. What is it like to live in Rochester, New York? He lives in Pittsford, Pennsylvania. And people keep talking, they're like, oh, I want to make that move, whatever. He likes the upper, I can never pronounce this word, Appalachian. And I've lived here for 14 years. Appalachian in the Great Lake region. I'm still drinking my coffee and I'm not awake just yet, guys. So he's like, so what does he do? I love this comment. It's fine. It's fine. But this one was actually a little bit more useful. It's true, upstate New York is less populated at the time, and basically the entire state of Pennsylvania is very similar to New York as well, that I want to talk about. Just because environmentally speaking, with the green spaces, with everything that exists, they're pretty similar. So, if you are thinking about making that move from Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, those sort of regions, we do have similar proximity to things. And people may say, oh, like New York doesn't have any greenery. Yes, we do. We do. We have a ton of greenery. The Great Stone Mountains, we have the Adirondacks just a few hours away. And even on top of that, we also have the Finger Lakes, which is beautiful. So let's take a look. Let's keep finishing this off. So I want to talk to that. Western New York is two separate cities, Buffalo and Rochester, correct, with a population of about 2.4 million. That's correct. Whilst Pittsburgh is a little bit bigger. Why the Buffalo Bills? Although a small market, it's not that small in popularity because it has both of these places. With that being said, in terms of water quality, excellent in Rochester and Monroe County, and the Finger Lakes area, which is a little bit south of Rochester, New York. It's very environmentally sound. There's no questions about that. But let's look. Rochester is the Paris of Central Western New York. That's so funny. This is a badly unappreciated joke. So that's super duper funny. There was another comment. Let me see here real quick. Right here. So Rochester never had that big money footprint like other cities like Cleveland and Pittsburgh, or even Buffalo, which is correct. If you drive a Kia, I'd suggest getting another type of car. Jeez, I would. As I guess comedic as this is, he's not wrong. I would actually look at other cars because Kia theft has gone up tremendously all throughout the country. I think it's just jamming a flash drive. I'm not sure, I've never done it, but yeah, Kia, car theft from that perspective has gone up a lot. So I don't know I'm not going to add anything to it, just look at different cars. I completely agree with you. The other thing that I want to talk about, which is the slow pace of life, there should be a comment here, something right here. Slow pace of life, but with the benefits that comes with the city. Bars, restaurants, festivals, arts, and culture. Absolutely. Lilac Festival, Rochester, the Harmonics Festival. The people are nice. Yes and no. It depends on where you live. From my perspective alone, I think if you live closer to, something like Webster, Brighton, Pittsford, there's definitely pockets of those areas where it's a lot more. People are snarky, people are mean, people, have a high horse. But for the most majority, it's super cool. Henrietta is definitely a lot more laid back, which is why I chose to live there with my family. I think in terms of the west side, Gates and Irondequoit are pretty chill. I definitely, if you're looking at schools, Eastern Irondequoit is much, 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 much better than Western Irondequoit according to data. So yeah, take all those factors into consideration as well. Like this person said right here, this is JP, I've lived here my entire life, mostly on the east side. And if you don't want to hear me read it, just pause it and read it yourself. After living in the city for the last 5 years, I have a good map of where I would never want to live again. That being said, it is a great smaller city and there's plenty to do in the warmer months. You will get battered a bit by the winters at times, true, but I've always loved living here when whatever the flaws have been or are currently getting accentuated. The cost of living is obviously lower, true, but I don't mind the trade-offs when it comes with a lower income area. I mean, yeah, if there's less cost of living, it's just going to cost, or they're going to give less money away, kind of thing, Upstate New York is beautiful, bunch of things to do. So that's that. And okay, this is the final one that I want to talk about, which is, I think this is Tony. Yep. A few things, they moved from Pittsburgh. So if you're looking to move from Pittsburgh or any, cities that are similar to it, the food/restaurant scenes is a lot less diverse. 100% agree. We don't have as much food. But if you go to the public market on a Saturday, that's going to, definitely help. Way less traffic, 1,000%. Yep, 20 minutes away. I think this is, yes. Everything in Rochester is about 20-25 minutes away. Finger Lakes are super close by. There's always something to do. Maybe. Both Pittsburgh and Rochester have plenty of activities to keep you occupied, especially in the summer, 100%. The people here are just as friendly as the ones in Pittsburgh. You'll meet your mean ones, but generally people are nice. I agree. The coolest thing about Rochester is you're only an hour and a half away from Syracuse or Buffalo, where in Pittsburgh, the larger cities, is really Philadelphia. I can attest. You have smaller towns in between, so if you ever feel stuck and you want to go explore, just go an hour and a half east or west. Love it. Correct Mundo from that perspective. And lots of poor people and tons of crimes. Would not recommend anywhere outside of the art district. So bad, don't do it. If you don't like it, just wait 20 minutes and it'll change. Yeah, I think those are for the most part true. Now, this was the second one. So this was done 7 months ago. What is it like to live in Rochester? How is life in Rochester? So let's look at this here. Hi, I have been researching for new cities to migrate for retirement, right? I have 20 years of working age left and I want to plan ahead. Planning on making a move in the next 6 months. I'm done with living in big cities and I like to find a peaceful corner in New York State to retire. Rochester suburbs seems to fill the requirements I'm looking. Close to nice state parks and plenty of outdoor activities and nice weather for 3 seasons. Affordable housings. What is it like to live here? Okay, cool. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because a lot of the comments that we got here, I'm going to do this. The comments and the things that people said were a lot more valuable than the first one because, there was some comedic relief aspect to the first one of, this, that, whatever. People were just brutally honest in this one, and I'm all for it. So I'm going to read this, and again, if you don't like to hear me read it, just, you can read it yourself, of course. I'm going to make this a little smaller. Obviously, everyone is mentioning taxes, but it is quite a nice area to live. Lots of park, the Genesee River, the Erie Canal, Letchworth is a nice little day trip. Lake Ontario is amazing. I feel like a lot of us who are from here take it for granted. My wife's sister visited from Nebraska and saw it for the first time. She was blown away. If you're into football, Buffalo/Orchard Park is like an hour away and it has really cool sports too. The weather can change frequently. In my opinion, we're currently in that spot. Yesterday was rainy and cold, miserable. Today is rainy, but the temperature is actually pleasant for the first time of year. Tomorrow, it might snow. It's a crapshoot. All in all, I couldn't tell you. It's gonna be in 20 years when I'm in my 50s. I've been to a lot of different cities, places, all in different states that I like. I could live here. I could live here. But I always come back to Rochester. It's a city that a lot of us like to bitch about when we're here. But once you leave, you really miss it. Yes, the taxes are higher. They also cover much more services than the lower tax cities. Approximately $500 a year gives me garbage, recycling, sidewalk plow, brush pickup, leaf pickup, and sewer. Yeah. I can attest to this because I've actually, in terms of helping a team of mine, because I'm an agent, but I also coach other realtors. I lived in Denver for about 6 months, and I was not a fan. I simply didn't like it. And I can go into greater details about Denver versus Rochester, and if you want me to make that video, I will. But I was not a fan of living there. Coupling that with my mom's health and a lot of things that were going on in my personal life, I made the move back to Rochester. My mom's health playing the biggest part, right? Obviously. Rochester really does have, I just think, a slower pace of life. It's so much more relaxing to live here. Like, I enjoy the greenery. Like, I live in a, I'd say like a decently upper middle class area, if I can say that. Our home around the 300s, 350s price point, which is not that bad, personally speaking. But it's so just the vibe, and I think that's what they're talking about here. So I 100% agree with this. We do take a lot of things for granted, and I'm going to start documenting, the tours in person, so you guys can see Letchworth Park, so you guys can see Lake Ontario, Genesee, Erie Canal. Let's read this one here. I love Rochester. I grew up in the Boston area, lived there for 20 years, and lived in New York City for 4 years. I've been in Rochester for 3 years now. Bought our first home nearly 2 years ago. I can happily say Rochester is by far my favorite place I've ever lived. Yes, property taxes are high, and others pointed out. However, the cost of living and cost of homes is so low that it easily cancels out the other taxes, in my opinion. And it's still way cheaper to live here than most other places, and the amenities are amazing. I disagree with other commenters saying the taxes don't get you anything either. We have fantastic public services. Unless we're talking about public schools, but those, I can't say that word. We have leaf removal, snow removal, public trash, recycling pickup, beautifully maintained parks, and a lot of other city services, all paid for by taxes. Again, I'm going to stress how good the amenities here are too. We live in the city itself, and the most things are in a walking distance or a 10-minute drive. Yep. I never have to drive further than 20 minutes to get to anything. There's a good restaurants, a lot of good mom and pop shops. That's the one thing, 100%. Nice grocery stores, and a place or community for pretty much any hobby you enjoy or are interested in. There's a lot to do here. I can actually do those things because it's affordable to live here. I live in the city proper, not a suburb, and there's a 25 acres of old grove trail, literally 20 feet from my front door. I also live within a 5-minute drive of 5 other parks, so a lot of options for outdoor fun. We ski in the winter. It's an hour to the local ski places. There's also a lot of problems with Rochester. This is why I wanted to read this. Like anywhere else, we're one of the most segregated cities in the country, and our school system suffers massively for it. There's also a part of poverty here which makes life so much harder than it needs to be for so many people. But I also see Rochester as a city with a lot of potential, and there are people working very hard here to make life better. I believe in the city and the people trying to make positive changes, and I think it could be a place where life is good for the majority of residents someday. That's the city I'm striving to help build, at least. I've never thought I would put my roots down anywhere for many, many years to come. But Rochester won me over. and I'm looking forward to building my life here. If you're here for any specific question about Rochester, I'm here to help. That's a great point. Thank you. Comfortable duet 0920. That's a great point though. And I think they brought something that is not talked about very, very often, which again, I want to stress as much as possible, right? They talked about something here that, let me see here real quick. It's a lot of mom and pop shops. I'm a fan of it personally. As someone who's also from Massachusetts, the fact that anyone complains about their taxes, it blows my mind. They paid my roads last year. There wasn't no potholes. So people are fans, right? That's what Dual Will said. So this is the last one that I want to read, and then I'm going to get onto it because we got 3 more to take a look at. But as someone who grew up in New York City, I highly recommend I highly recommend Rochester. I live in the city proper, but very close to the neighborhood, suburban areas. While speaking to my family that lives in New York City and Long Island, they share with me how much they pay in taxes. It's a lot more. As for activities here, there's a ton of fun parks 30 minutes away from their house. If you research the city, specific areas, Park Ave, Neighborhood Arts District, North Winton Village, South Wedge. I used to live in South Wedge before I moved to Henrietta. Love that place. If you want me to go there and video tour, I will. But yeah, so fun things in the city to do. I don't ever feel like I'm in danger, especially if you're not in the inner city, because the inner city sucks, but everything else around it is really cool. She's a part of softball leagues. It looks like large kickball leagues as well. Fun amenities when people have a ton of things to do. While housing costs aren't terrible, I imagine the cost of houses in the areas will become closer to the national average in the coming years. I can agree with that. Here's some data. My wife and I bought our house in 2021. At the time, we did a lot of research. Okay, cool. Yeah, in 2021, home prices were going like $100,000 above asking price, which is nuts when you think about it. On top of that, the winters here are atrocious and the weather in general sucks. I'm not going to read that. It's notably wetter and colder here all around compared to New York City. That's true as well. However, to point things out, Rochester is supposedly going to be a city that's less impacted by the effects of climate change. Yep. And the fact that we live right next to humongous freshwater lakes is huge. The weather does suck here. It's true. So that's that. And then, in terms of anything else, I think most people are a fan. That's what it looks like. You'll get more bang for your buck, you'll get more bang for your buck in Buffalo. I completely disagree with that. Buffalo home prices have gone up at least 16% the last year to years. Rochester's have only gone up 6%. So I disagree. But that's that there. Let's look at the other one. And this one was created 3 years ago, right? So it's definitely worth talking about because, again, in terms of a populist standpoint of what happened, a few months ago, a few years ago, let's talk about them. What are the downsides of living in Rochester? I made a topic about a week ago about moving to Rochester. The responses were generally positive, but there were a few people who replied, "Don't move here" or "bad idea." So I figured I would make a separate topic about why not to move here. I love me some Rochester, but I wish we had direct flights. That's true. That's the one kicker, is we don't have direct flights. I went to Florence just about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. I was modeling there a little while back. And to get to Florence, I had to take a flight. I had to drive to Buffalo. Well, my friends had to drive me to Buffalo. We had to take the flight from Buffalo to Detroit, and then Detroit to Paris, and then Paris to Florence. The thing was, we simply couldn't do Rochester to Buffalo. Rochester to Detroit, because I don't know why, for whatever reason, like maybe it was a flights mix-up, it just didn't happen. So I think it might have been cost, just cheaper. In terms of flights and in terms of, direct flights, we don't have that many. It's usually going to be to Detroit or to JFK. I wish there were better options for public transportation when the traffic isn't generally bad and it's easier to drive places. It would be nice not to have drive into work, for example. Sure. Sounds like a plan. You need a car. It's also a shitty place for a car. Prepare to factor that into your living expense. Yeah, sure. Honest, the live music scene is lacking. Sure, I can understand that predicament. The majority of the year, you're likely just to go to Buffalo for it. It's an hour drive. Long gray winters. It's October now here, and in terms of grayness, yesterday was pretty bad, which was the 6th, but it's not terrible just yet. The The 5th and the 4th were really warm, actually. It was in their 70s. Seasonal affective disorder is real, and many of us suffer from it. Sure. Yeah, that's true. Winters are bad. As a recent transplant for the second time, taxes are the only drawback big enough to comment to. I've never been, one to complain. My property taxes are about 2.2%. Wow, higher than what you paid in Michigan. That's so long. It's also 2.2% cheaper here, probably. I'm a transplant. Here's my downsides. Weather, it's cold. City isn't friendly. It's oxymoronic, and I don't know why that's the case, because it's like, why are people friendly to some people or people aren't friendly to other people? Is it because you're not friendly back? Is it because why? I've personally, and I want to put a caveat to it. I'm 6'4" and 250 pounds. I bodybuilt for the last 60 years. I also, do some form of physical activities through martial arts. So maybe from my perspective, and again, it's my perspective because I'm not a 125 pound, 5'3" woman, right? I haven't experienced anything of that nature. Like, even when I'm going out, to maybe bar or two on a Friday night with my friends, I haven't really experienced that, but also that's my perspective, right? And I think the interesting thing about perspective is everyone's perspective is correct. So I'm not going to sit around and say everyone is super kind. I'm also not going to say everyone's super mean. To me, as a man, a colored person, 6'4", 250, I have yet to experience like major attacks or mean people. But that's not to say that you might not, right? So take all that into consideration when making that move here. So winter's great property taxes. Well, there's a lot to do. It's hard to find. Sure. So I think you get, most points. We still have 2 more to get to. So right here, right? This is really funny. Rochester, New York looks too good to be true. Okay. Sure. Let's focus on this. I've seen the prices on housing in Rochester on Realtor.com, and wow. I also expect upstate New York to be trans-friendly environment, at least compared to most other major places, well, with reasonable costs. So, trans-friendly. In terms of LGBTQ friendliness here, I don't think we're terribly different than any other city. I'm a straight man myself, so I can't really speak into it too much. But, for the most part, people don't really give a crap. You guys have respected colleges, correct? Climate change. So what's the catch? There has to be something. Here's the catch. We have 4 seasons, green spaces, and a great Erie Canal. Additionally, the airport's only 4 minutes away from where she lives apparently. And then there's no catch. The 4 of us love living here. As someone that's recently relocated to the area and has been house hunting, don't go by the listing price on Realtor.com or any sites. Pay attention to what's sold. Yes. George the Fierce, yes. For some reason, I can tell you exactly why. Let me tell you exactly why. Let me take a minute out of your day, please, and tell you exactly why. Ready? It's because agents are listing homes way below market price and creating demand for it, right? It's the same scenario over and over and over again. Agents are listing the home at $200,000 and the home is realistically worth $275,000, maybe $250,000. What happens then is they then get multiple priced offers from people that are looking at $175,000 to $225,000, from people looking at $200,000 to $300,000, from people looking to $150,000 to $250,000, whatever. And then it creates competition and demand. And instead of just having 6 or 7 people look at it, you now have 60 to 70 people looking at it with escalation clause that people throw in there. Boom. This house sells for $325,000. Crazy, right? So that's why looking at the sold number is so correct. But now it doesn't matter. The market is coming back to the point in which inflation is high, election is coming up, and people can't afford homes. So with that being said, even if they do like the number, they can't afford it. So the demand for homes have gone down. And it's also October. Most people aren't buying homes. They're getting ready for Thanksgiving and such. Let's see here. It's because the home cost, housing bubble, it's been insane. Bought one for $150,000 in 2019. Now it's mid-300s. Jeez, that's crazy. Nuts. What's the catch? Do you like snow and hate sunlight? It's pretty funny. Let's look at this as the last one, and then we'll get to the final one, and then, dip out. But a few things. Unless you're an avid cyclist or live fully downtown, everything requires a car, sure, but everything's about 20 minutes away. Rochester has a crime and poverty problem, and the urban-suburban divide actually fuels it, makes it more. That's true too. I agree. When the political landscapes have shifted, things drop off pretty quickly from we want utopian world to sure, Confederate flags are good to have in my yard as you go further out. I'd say that in the inner ring of the suburbs and severe neighborhoods in the city, we are probably perfectly happy medium for trans folks. South Wedge, Noda, Brighton, yeah, I agree. South Wedge is one of those areas that's more exclusive. I love that I'm a mile from the lake of the Crow Fields around Equate. Well, okay, sure. We need more sunshine. Yep, I agree. For the most part, it seems like most people are saying, the same thing. Winters, most people posting negative things about Rochester, haven't lived anywhere else before. Whoa, I like it. That's that one. And then let's go here. This is the last one, and then I gotta get going, guys. Just kidding. I love you all. Worth it to move to Rochester? Hi all, my boyfriend and I currently live in Philly. It seems like everyone's moving here from PA. But we're eagerly trying to get out of the city since it's just becoming worse and worse. Problem is, all surrounding suburbs and New Jersey suburbs are flat out unaffordable. I'm sorry. We've been considering a big move since we're both young and don't have kids. We're ready to buy a house too, but you seriously can't find anything reasonable under $350. It's absurd. Yeah, it is. I've been checking the housing market literally all over the country and taken interest in the Rochester area. I've never been to Upstate New York. My parents visited the Finger Lakes area. How do you like Rochester? My wife and I moved here from Philly just over 3 years ago. She's from Rochester Burbs, and I'm from North Jersey. Worth noting off the jump, we loved living in Philly, but we're both kind of new, and it's not going to be a place where we both just knew it's not going to be a place to live long term. Rochester made sense for numbers of reasons already stated in the thread. Cost of living is low, quality of life is high, access to nature is hard to beat versus sitting in traffic just to go to the Wissahickon in Philly. Cool. As a transplant, just don't have a Kia or a Hyundai and you'll be okay. If you're used to Philly, Rochester isn't bad. I think Rochester is one of the best places to live in the United States. But Rochester has all of these. Yep. And that's it. That's all I got. If you look at those in terms of the Reddit thread, it looks like for the most part, people are saying, Rochester is a good, decent place to live. I completely agree with that. Right? When we look at every other massive city and when we look at areas as a whole, we see that, every city is shifting quick, right? I can talk about Denver because I live there, because Denver has become a lot more left, and the people that live here, the people that live there have shifted a lot in terms of both a cultural attraction and just a vibe attraction as well. My buddy lives in California. He lives in Orange County. Orange County has shifted as well. And the issue with Orange County and Denver and Seattle is right now it's not just one family living in one area anymore. It's multiple because they can't afford homes. So take all that into account. When you look at Rochester, friendly people, good place to live, good environment, cheap homes, high property taxes, not the best of jobs, but job creation still exists. And I've made a video talking about that and talking about exactly what's going on here from a numerics perspective with real estate. I'll also put that in the description below just so you can take a look at it. But when you do take a look at it, understand one just critical thing. And I talked about it beforehand, and it's this. Every single person that's commented on any of these threads, whatever that may look like, whatever that may be, has a different perspective. And I think that's something that we have to make sure that we hone in on. Every single person has their own unique perspective towards everything that's happened. Everyone is living their own life. So for me to just sit here and say, hey, listen, Rochester is going to be great for you, or even for me to sit here and say Rochester will suck and you absolutely shouldn't move here, it would just be hubris, right? It's not that, it wouldn't make much of a difference from that perspective, because until you experience what you choose to experience, you can never know. And I think that unknowing aspect of it, without getting too philosophical, is what kills people, right? Because it's like, oh man, like what's this going to be like if I moved here, if I did this, if I did that. So if you are curious about specific neighborhoods, because those things we can hone in on, right? If you're looking for more of an art scenes, then the art district. If you're looking for more of a school for your family, then maybe Pittsford or Penfield. Those things we can hone in on. But Rochester as a whole, from just a living here perspective, we can't. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, and we also don't know whether you're going to enjoy it here. But for the most part, you can take into account which one of these people you think you're most similar to, and see from that experience, from their perspective, if you would enjoy that idea as well. That's the biggest thing if you're not making that move. But with that being said, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for your time. I really am grateful. And I should probably end the video now at this point. So I'll see you on the next one.